The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
There's a video that's gone viral, and the video is of anchors at TV stations. I'm trying to explain this in the clearest way. TV stations owned by the Sinclair Broadcast Group all over the country, basically reading the same script, a story about fake news. And the only things that are sort of different from station to station are the name of the city that the station is in and a few other very, very minor differences. And the video has been edited together in a video that's gone totally viral, where there's a supercut basically of like 20 or 25 different stations, all owned by Sinclair, all over the country, reading the exact same news story. Now, I think it is great that this is an issue and a story that has gone viral and that is getting more and more attention across the country. And I'm not denying that this problem has gotten worse over the last year or two. I have been talking about this issue in local news for about 10 years, okay? I've been talking about how in local news, what you basically have, any affiliate-owned local news station. So if you have the local Boston, ooh, I punched my mic because I am so passionate about this. When you look at the Boston-owned ABC affiliate, you will see in a half-hour newscast a bunch of minutes about the local weather, and you will see a couple of news stories, and then you will see national stories. And those stories are being delivered by ABC National to ABC Local as pre-produced packages. They all run the same what's called B-roll, or video footage that you see as the anchor is talking. And these are basically the same story. So we have all over the country. So we have this idea that, listen, if you want to disconnect from the national 24-hour news cycle, you go to your local news station. But in many cases, increasingly in most cases, your local news station is about half or two-thirds made up of stories that are just coming from the National Broadcasting Center for those affiliate stations. ABC News for local ABC affiliates, Fox News and Fox National for local Fox affiliates. And what this is causing is a total sort of homogenization of the news, but it is also very, very deceptive to people who think that they are getting something totally different and more trustworthy when they go to their, quote, local news, even though the resources that are going into creating those stories are the exact same resources that are producing the stories of the 24-hour news channels, which some people are trying to avoid. Now what we're getting is that because of the consolidation that is taking place because of Sinclair Broadcast Group and the number of stations that they have bought up, this is becoming something that people are paying more attention to, specifically at Sinclair stations. And indeed, now they own over 170 news outlets around the US, and they have this story about fake news, and it was all cut together, and it is the same story. Whether you live in, and I'm just throwing names out here, in Phoenix, Arizona, or Seattle, Washington, or Boston, Massachusetts, your local anchors are just reading something off of a teleprompter that was written at the national level, period. And because Sinclair also increasingly owns not just one, they don't own just like ABC stations or Fox stations. This is getting so bad that it is going across networks at this point. What can we do about it? I wish I had something positive to tell you. I mean, the underlying problems here are, number one, the way in which mass local media consolidation is being allowed. There are calls for an investigation of the FCC and their Trump-appointed chairman, Ajit Pai, for the fact that this is going on and seemingly in an unregulated fashion. But unfortunately, I really don't have much I can say other than independent shows like ours. And listen, you're already members. It's not a pitch for our show. No one is sending us scripts, right?
That's true.
That's the one place where you actually can push the other way by making financial contributions.
And actually, Sinclair is growing. They may be purchasing Tribune Media, which is another corporate conglomerate.
Yep.
And that would put them on in 42 more stations.
Yeah.
And they would be able to be accessed in 70% of U.S. households.
That's right.
So we would even be able to see them here in Boston.
Yeah, I think we already are. On some, I think they're
one?
already in Boston, yeah. But certainly their footprint would continue to grow. Yeah, they're not slowing down. I mean, why would they, right? They have found a very profitable model, which is we buy stations, we take a lot of the day-to-day production stuff, and we take it in-house and do it in a centralized way, and then distribute these scripts. They just insert the name of their city. We spread our narrative, and of course, why do we care about Sinclair? Well, we care about it, number one, because we don't want such media consolidation. That's just generally bad for diversity of ideas. But Sinclair is also very, very right-wing connected. So it's also, I would be against this no matter what. because it's a bad thing for ownership of media, and in terms of creating a unified narrative, I think it's terrible no matter what. But in addition to that, as progressives, they are able to do this in order to spread right-wing narratives, and that's just horrible.
Are you surprised that the local news anchors are willing to go along with this? You'd think that maybe they would have a little bit of either independence or integrity enough to say, I'm not going to go along with this and read the script. But, you know, then again, the media and journalism as an industry is very competitive. So they don't want to lose their job. There may not be another place for them to go to.
Yeah, no, I'm not at all surprised that the anchors are just doing it to the extent that they even know. I mean, if you don't know that, if you're in Boston and you don't know that the New York affiliate is reading the exact same story, it's just, hey, here's the stories we got from corporate, here's the stories we're doing locally, and here's the weather. So whether they even know, I think, would be a question.
That's another question, too,
Here's something interesting for everybody who is really disgusted by mosquitoes or hates mosquitoes. And I know a lot of people who really, when it gets to be that time of summer where the mosquitoes come out, they stop going outdoors, right? So for a lot of people who just hate mosquitoes, they basically go out during spring and fall because they don't want to be bit by mosquitoes. Fortunately, here in Boston and in New York, same thing. I don't know if it's because the cities are on the water or what. Mosquitoes are not that big of a problem.
No.
Like where I grew up in Western Massachusetts, it's a nightmare, particularly in what's called the Pioneer Valley there. I think it's extra bad. But in Boston, mosquitoes fortunately aren't a huge issue.
Maybe it's a city thing because there's not as much foliage, not so many trees out there.
I don't think so, because there are southern cities that are much more humid that are inland that do have significant problems with mosquitoes. So if I don't know for sure, but I think it's being on the water that is what really helps, and probably lower degrees of humidity. In any case, there's now a very exciting possibility for people who really hate mosquitoes, which is a medication called ivermectin, which you can take, and then it will cause malaria-carrying mosquitoes to die after feeding on individuals who have ingested the drug. The question then is, okay, well, this is obviously something that could be very positive for people in countries with malaria, because even if they get infected after being bit by a mosquito with malaria, if they've taken ivermectin, then the mosquitoes will die and you'll reduce the number of further people that they are able to infect. But people in the West are also loving this as something that they could take. And if you have a significant percentage of the population taking this stuff, that it would cause a huge, huge die-off of the mosquito population. So from a personal level, I think this is fantastic. I can't stand mosquitoes. Mosquitoes will ruin your day. When I was down in Austin, Texas, it was just a disaster, the mosquitoes. I've been down in parts of Florida where when it gets really humid and the mosquitoes will just really, really ruin your day and growing up. However, I do also recognize that we have an ecosystem with interdependence, and I don't know if there was a significant die-off of the mosquito population, like would we be messing with the equilibrium of our ecosystem? I genuinely don't know the answer.
Well, birds eat mosquitoes, so maybe we would also see a reduction in the population of bird species.
Right.
And I don't think we want that.
I guess not. Yeah, I mean, we have birds that are pollinators. We have birds that are food for other species higher up in the food chain. But and you know, the other thing that I also wonder is, let's say, I don't know, 10% of the population takes this stuff. I don't know that you're going to get most people to just say, I want to kill mosquitoes, so I'm going to take this drug. I think 10% would be like a major achievement. Would 10% of the population taking this really cause a significant decrease in the mosquito population overall? I don't know if it would. I don't know what percentage of the population would have to take this in order to make a dent.
I also question the efficacy of it too, because apparently it takes like a week or two before most of the mosquitoes die off after injecting this.
Yeah.
I mean, the lifespan of a mosquito is only like a month anyway.
Right.
I guess for male mosquitoes, it's like 10 days.
Yeah.
And for female mosquitoes, it's like 30 to 50 days.
Yep.
So would that cause a significant change? Maybe not.
It might have a bigger impact in terms of preventing the birth of future mosquitoes, right?
Yeah.
So like if the male mosquitoes start dying out, I mean, again, a week is not that much sooner than the 10 days they might otherwise live.
Females before they reach the child rearing
Females
age.
before they start rearing child mosquitoes. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds very interesting, and I can't stand mosquitoes, and they really ruin any outdoor social gatherings. But I just don't know about what the long-term impact of this would
I think
be.
we had an audience question about this a long time ago, and it had to do with if you could eliminate a species given that there would be no effect on the rest of the ecosystem, which
Yeah.
species would you pick?
Yeah.
For me, it was hands down mosquitoes. I hate
Mosquitoes
those
are pretty
things.
high. Mosquitoes are pretty high on the list, yeah. Let's go to the world of synthetic marijuana. At least one person has died in Illinois following a rash of hospitalizations of people who were using synthetic pot and then experiencing severe bleeding, according to state officials. And the person's death was reported a couple days ago, but we don't yet have information about the age, gender, or the name of the person. And we don't even know at this point even in which county in Illinois this took place. And the number of hospitalizations from severe bleeding after using synthetic cannabis have been increasing. And this is a real concern. As of Saturday, 38 people have been hospitalized in the Chicago area and central Illinois, according to health officials. 10 cases in Chicago, 4 others in Cook County. And 3 of the hospitalized tested positive for brodifacoum. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. It's commonly known as rat poison. This is not the first time we've heard about problems with synthetic cannabis. Sometimes it's called spice. Sometimes it's called K2. And it's a mixture of hundreds of chemicals that affect the same brain cell receptors as the main ingredient in marijuana. And the problem with this that a lot of people are experiencing is they hear synthetic marijuana. Oh, well, that's like marijuana, just synthetic. But no, the real similarity that it has with marijuana is that it impacts the same brain receptors. But by and large, this is stuff, these are kind of designer drugs that are filled with all sorts of different chemicals. Users don't know exactly what they have. Some of them, clearly, as we're learning, contain rat poison. And this is really horrible stuff, and you should stay away from it. And I believe, I don't follow this world significantly, but there was a basketball player who was dating one of the Kardashians, Lamar Odom, who I believe went into a coma after synthetic marijuana. Or you know what? That was synthetic Viagra.
Oh.
That was synthetic Viagra, I believe.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. But in any case, sometimes you hear synthetic X and you think, oh, it's a lab-made version of X. Thus, it's probably even safer.
Right.
And the truth is often the exact opposite.
Yeah, marijuana relative to other drugs is pretty safe too because you can't overdose on it. I know there are, certainly questions about how healthy it is for your lungs if you're smoking it.
Yeah.
Whether there are carcinogens in marijuana, so it's not like it's any sort of panacea and that there are no health repercussions from smoking it.
Right.
But compared to K2, it's way safer.
Yes,
that's for sure.
That's abundantly clear. So, in general, when you see these designer drugs, you see that the legislation is just behind the latest drug, and because you can come up with a bunch of different combinations, often made from chemicals that are not in and of themselves banned, the cocktail will often be legal for some period of time as long as it is not being sold as a drug for human consumption. I think often they sell it as incense stuff, whatever the branding is. Then the law will catch up and say this specific combination or these particular chemicals can no longer be sold over the counter. And by then, usually people have come up with like whatever the next one is that they are going to make available. This is a real problem, and this stuff is really dangerous. And again, I'm for legalization, decriminalization, dealing with drugs as a health issue. But this synthetic stuff is really bad.
And I would actually be in favor of a push to make K2 and all these other synthetic products illegal.
Really?
And I'm not concerned with like a black market effect because I don't think people would find other ways to get this. If they want to go to the black market, they're already going to marijuana anyway.
It's kind of a black market as it is, in the sense that it's made. You can't really. It's an underground thing in the sense that you're putting together a series of chemicals and then selling it as something else.
So you can buy K2 in stores.
Right. It's not literally a black market, but as a drug, it is sort of underground in that you have to sell it as either, I don't remember. I wish I remembered. It's either incense or bath salt sometimes the stuff is sold as, or I don't know what else. But needless to say, stay off the synthetic pot, kids. If there's any kids listening to the show. And otherwise, adults should stay away from this stuff too.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.